The following podcast may not be for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
In the shadows between reality and illusion, where truth bends like a card in a magician's hand, some stories defy explanation. In this episode, we venture into the dark theaters and smoke-filled parlors, where magicians once commanded the thin line between our world and something far more mysterious. From the seance rooms of London to death-defying escapes, Harry Houdini's magic has always been more than just sleight of hand and clever misdirection. They say Houdini could escape any prison, any chain, any lock ever forged by man. His name alone conjures images of impossible escapes. But I'm not here to simply retell the tales of his escapes. No, we're diving deeper into the dark waters of Houdini's crusade against fraudulent mediums and the eerie prophecy that some say sealed his fate. On Halloween night, 1926, the world's greatest escape artist faced the one trap he couldn't break free from: death itself. Join me as I explore one of the most persistent mysteries in the world of magic: the death of Harry Houdini. In the shadows of the Gilded Age in America lurked a man who made death his playmate. Harry Houdini, born Eric Weiss in Budapest on March 24, 1874, the son of a rabbi. He watched his family immigrate from Hungary to the bitter winters of Appleton, Wisconsin. At a young age, he started performing with circuses, specifically as a trapeze artist. By the time he reached New York in 1882, the innocent trapeze artist who once soared through circus tents had begun performing in vaudeville shows. In 1894, he married Wilhelmina Rahner, who later changed her name to Beatrice Houdini and became his stage assistant when he performed as a magician. Houdini's reputation didn't just soar, it haunted the American imagination like a beautiful nightmare. On dimly lit stages across the country, he transformed confinement into theater. Shackles snapped open at his touch, chains slithered from his body like metal serpents, and ropes fell away as if burned by his very skin. But it was the confined spaces that truly revealed his darkness. Whether locked inside a water-filled can or nailed into a wooden coffin, Houdini turned claustrophobic terror into a form of art. Prison cells, the ultimate symbol of human containment, became his playground. Death seemed to beckon Houdini with ever more seductive challenges. In what could have been his watery tomb, he allowed himself to be sealed inside a wooden box, a coffin for the living. It was bound with rope that bit into the wood. Weights were added that promised to drag him to the water's depths, and he was lowered into the black waters of the East River in New York. As spectators held their breath, the river swallowed him whole, its currents whispering promises of finality. Minutes ticked by like hours until, like some dark phoenix rising from the depths, Houdini burst through the surface, gasping and triumphant. But perhaps even more chilling was his dance with madness itself. Suspended high above city streets from a building that housed a newspaper, his body contorted in a canvas straitjacket, the same device used to constrain society's most troubled souls. Blood rushed to his head as he hung upside down, the crowd below appearing as a sea of upturned faces. In this inverted world, he would writhe and twist, fighting against the jacket's embrace like a man possessed, until finally, with one last violent contortion, he would break free from the straitjacket and emerge victorious. Each performance was a mockery of death itself, a taunt thrown in the face of mortality. The year 1913 shattered Houdini's world. His mother's death from a sudden heart attack left him drowning in grief, a chains and locks trap he couldn't escape. Cecilia had been more than just his mother. She was his anchor. When he achieved financial success, he bought his mother a home in the German section of Haarlem. The news of her passing came to him during a press conference in Denmark. He had just performed for a large audience that included members of the Danish royal family. Once he read the cable that was given to him, he fainted. In the prime of his fame, when he finally could give her everything she deserved, she was gone. The great escape artist found himself haunted by the one act he couldn't perform, bringing her back. In the shadows of grief, Houdini first ventured into the realm of spirits and seances alongside his friend Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Doyle was a British writer, physician, and the creator of the character Sherlock Holmes. He was a man whose brilliant mind had surrendered to supernatural beliefs. The two prowled darkened parlors of mediums, Houdini desperate to hear his mother's voice one final time. The two were drawn to the friendship based on their shared interest in spiritualism. Though Doyle believed Houdini had magic powers, Houdini would argue it was all an illusion. Conan Doyle became a heavy believer in the afterlife after losing his son to the blood-soaked fields of World War I. He often donated large amounts of money to organizations that were trying to prove that spirits were all around us. Pouring his fortune into chasing whispers from beyond the veil, Houdini, on the other hand, had a desperate yearning to hear his mother's voice just once more, but was skeptical. After all, he was the master of illusions. Houdini's intimate knowledge of deception made him see demons where his friend Doyle saw angels. Houdini kept his growing skepticism of spiritualists quiet, feigning his actual belief that they were all frauds. One day, Doyle's wife, Jean, claimed she was a medium and possessed the skill of automatic writing. Automatic writing, also known as psychography, is a technique where human hands become mere vessels for something else. These writers claim their consciousness slips away as unseen forces guide their pens across paper, their fingers dancing to an otherworldly puppet master's strings. During this session, Jean scribbled a 5-page message to Houdini from his mother. At the top of each page, a cross was drawn. This confirmed his belief that it was all fraud. His mother was Jewish and would have never drawn a cross or mentioned one in a message to him. Their friendship ripped apart, the ending as sharp as a knife's edge. Each man's beliefs tore apart what their shared obsession had built. Like a vengeful ghost himself, Houdini hunted down mediums and spiritualists, exposing them publicly, calling them human leeches and believing them to be vultures circling the bereaved. They found themselves stripped bare by his merciless exposés. In 1926, Houdini took his crusade against the darkness straight to Congress, his voice echoing through the marble halls that had seen their share of American battles. But this fight was very different. He wasn't just after laws against fortune-telling. He wanted to tear down every charlatan who dared promise to bridge the gap between the living and the dead. The man who made his name escaping chains now sought to shackle those who chained the grieving to false hope. Mina Crandon, also known as Marjorie the Medium, became one of Houdini's targets. Marjorie Crandon's descent into spiritualism began like a gothic fairy tale. a Boston wife who found herself immersed in the world of psychic phenomena after marrying a surgeon. The transformation from homemaker to medium wasn't sparked by any whispers from the other side of childhood. It took a psychic's carefully crafted suggestion about a spectral young man, her dead brother, to ignite her supposed gift. Visiting a psychic, she was told that a young man was trying to contact her. The psychic also told her she had psychic abilities. By 1923, she'd drawn the attention of academia's elite. Harvard's halls of learning became her testing ground, with professors and graduate students gathering like modern-day ghost hunters to probe her claim. Under the guidance of American psychologists Gardner Murphy and William McDougall, their verdict cut through her supernatural facade. No genuine psychic power lurked behind her performances. But Marjorie wasn't finished. Like a moth drawn to fame's dangerous flame, she entered a magazine's contest that would seal her fate. The judges were a who's who of America's paranormal investigators, from Walter Franklin Prince to Hereward Carrington, Technicolor pioneer Daniel Comstock to Harvard's own William McDougall. But among these judges was her future nemesis, Harry Houdini, the escape artist who made a second career of trapping fraudulent mediums in their deceptions. The associate editor of Scientific American magazine, J. Malcolm Bird, offered a $2,500 reward to contestants who could show actual psychic ability. Although with Houdini's skepticism, friction arose, and Bird felt Houdini should be removed from the panel. The panel continued on without him. Unfortunately, they reached a deadlock. They thought they had witnessed some psychic ability from Marjorie, but Houdini wanted to witness a seance. While witnessing the seance, he claimed to have seen Marjorie making noises with her feet and lifting objects that she claimed moved on their own. In his relentless crusade against the fraudulent mediums of the 1920s, Houdini crafted a wooden box he called the Margie box. This cruel contraption was designed for one purpose: to trap the infamous medium Marjorie like a specimen under the glass. Her head would protrude from one hole, her arms forced through the others, leaving her body immobilized to prevent her from physically moving objects. She claimed her dead brother Walter's spirit was present during seances. But Houdini didn't believe this. He'd seen too many charlatans prey on grief, and he was determined to expose her theatrics for what they were: a macabre puppet show orchestrated by the living, not the dead. What happened next defied explanation, or so it seemed. During the seance, the box's top tore away as if an invisible force had ripped it off. Marjorie, her face a mask of otherworldly serenity, credited her phantom brother, Walter, with the violent display. The following night, the skeptics regrouped, their determination hardened. Once again, Marjorie submitted to her wooden box, hands thrust through the holes like a prisoner at the stocks. As she slipped into her trance, the challenge was set. Ring a bell placed within the box, using her psychic ability. Her hands, visible to all, couldn't possibly reach it. This would be her proof, her vindication. But the bell remained silent, Walter's voice speaking through Marjorie's lips in a grotesque ventriloquist act, accused Houdini of sabotage. When the bell was finally examined, the truth emerged like a whispered confession. A small piece of rubber wedged against the clapper had prevented it from moving. In the war between the living and the dead, Houdini had drawn first blood. The tables turned with brutal irony. The great debunker had become deceiver. Houdini's planted ruler in the Margie box revealed his slate of hand. It was determined that Houdini had an assistant place a ruler in the box as well to prove Marjorie a fraud. His credibility bled away like a magician's failed trick. though he refused to admit defeat. Instead, he lashed out, penning a book titled Houdini Exposes the Tricks Used by the Boston Medium Marjorie. J. Malcolm Bird's defense of Marjorie swayed the masses like a pendulum, drawing them back to her mysterious realm. But Houdini wasn't finished. In perhaps his boldest performance, he strode into the halls of Congress where marble columns loomed like ancient judges, and before a packed subcommittee chamber, he brandished a sealed telegram like a weapon. The air crackled with tension as psychics, mediums, and spiritualists gathered to fight this proposed bill titled the House Resolution 8989. It would outlaw fortune-telling. His challenge rang through the chamber. Read the contents of this sealed message, or prove yourself frauds and go to jail. In that moment, Houdini transformed the marble halls of government into a supernatural battleground, where the fate of an entire industry hung by a thread. The great escape artist had constructed his most elaborate trap yet, not with chains or water tanks, but with law and logic. Houdini's defeat in Congress festered like an open wound. His accusations of psychic corruption echoed through Washington's halls. He claimed these self-proclaimed seers had wrapped their spectral fingers around the throat of democracy itself. Perhaps he wasn't entirely wrong. In the shadows of power lurked Madame Marcia, whose whispered prophecies guided the hands of those in the White House, her influence seeping into the nation's highest office like dark water under a door. But Marcia wasn't content merely to thwart Houdini's legislative crusade. She turned her prophetic gaze upon the magician himself, and what she saw or claimed to see would prove horrifyingly precise. She proclaimed that death would claim Harry Houdini before November 1926. The words hung in the air like a curse, a prediction that would transform from mere theatrical spite into something far more sinister. The great escape artist who had defied death in chains and water tanks would soon face his final challenger, and this time there would be no curtain call. Perhaps his war with the spiritualists led to his death, though the threads of Houdini's fate may have been more tangled than anyone suspected. Behind the spectacle of his war with spiritualists lurked a darker game of international intrigue, one that began in the dust and the dazzle of Chicago's World Fair in 1893. There, amid the mechanical wonders and electric lights of America's gilded ambitions, a young Hungarian immigrant named Eric Weiss, not yet famous as Harry Houdini, crossed paths with Theodore Roosevelt. Their second meeting in 1896 during Roosevelt's presidential campaign wasn't a mere coincidence. As Houdini rose in the world of illusion, whispers began to circulate about espionage. When Russia's theft of the 1,100-page book Cipher of the Department of State threatened America's diplomatic secrets, Roosevelt needed someone who understood both deception and escape. Someone who could move invincibly through the world of entertainment and espionage. The diplomatic cipher books, those sacred texts of government secrecy, were designed to transform sensitive messages into unintelligible code, their meanings locked away from prying eyes. But in the wrong hands, they became skeleton keys to America's most guarded conversations. It was suspected that a man named Ivan F. Manasevich had found a way to work as a copyist at the U.S. Embassy and steal the book. In the sweltering summer of 1903, Houdini received an invitation to perform for the Tsar of Russia and his court. But beneath the golden veneer of imperial splendor lay a more shadowy purpose. While handcuffs and chains would bind his limbs for the entertainment of Russian royalty, his eyes and ears would remain dangerously free. Was it mere coincidence that Roosevelt's old acquaintance found himself in the heart of the Russian Empire, mere months after the theft of the Americans' diplomatic ciphers? Some believe that as Houdini moved through the opulent halls of Russian power, his performer's smile masked a different kind of performance. Could Roosevelt have asked him to overhear each conversation in candlelit corridors and every whispered word caught? This didn't make him a spy in the traditional sense. His role was more elegant, more deniable. After all, who would suspect that the man creating distractions for a living was himself a distraction? His spectacular escapes providing cover for a different kind of liberation, a theft of secrets from the very heart of the Russian court. We will never know if this is true, but if it is, could this have led to his very mysterious death? Among the tapestry of Houdini's secrets lies another thread, more delicate but no less dangerous: his rumored affair with Charmaine London, wife of the celebrated author Jack London. Like so many aspects of Houdini's life, this possible affair played out in the shadows, in the spaces between what was seen and what was hidden. Charmaine was no demure housewife, but a fierce intellect, and adventurous in her own right, a woman who could match Houdini's intensity with her own. The affair is rumored to have begun in 1918 after Jack London's death, and was thought to be the only time Houdini strayed from his marital vows. The great escape artist who built his fame on slipping free from physical bonds found himself perhaps entangled in emotional chains far more complex than any stage restraint. The possibility of their affair adds yet another layer to Houdini's strange death. It was known that Houdini suffered from stomach pains in his final months, but refused to visit a doctor. Those final stomach pains, sharp daggers twisting in his gut, might have been more than mere illness. Yet Houdini, master of endurance, treated pain like just another lock to pick, another chain to slip. But unlike his staged escapes, this one trap he couldn't charm his way out of. His stubborn refusal to seek medical help now seems less like bravado and more like a man perhaps protecting his secrets. Each stomach spasm carried its mystery. Was it a natural illness or something more sinister? Spiritualist had promised his doom. His political enemies wished him silence. And matters of the heart had destroyed greater men than he. As autumn crept toward that prophesied November of 1926, in Canada's Montreal Princess Theatre on October 22, 1926, a group of college students visit Houdini's dressing room. Among them was J. Gordon Whitehead, a man whose name would forever be entwined with Houdini's demise. What happened next has been debated for nearly a century. Whitehead allegedly asked Houdini if it was true that he could withstand any blow to the abdomen. Before Houdini could properly brace himself, Whitehead struck him multiple times, sharp, vicious punches. After the attack, Houdini was in extreme pain, but continued on to his performance. This attack would reportedly rupture the magician's appendix. But here's where our tale takes a darker turn. Some researchers have pointed to suspicious inconsistencies in this narrative. Why was Whitehead, the man who delivered those fatal blows, never prosecuted? Why did he seemingly vanish into thin air afterward? And most intriguing, why were there whispers among spiritualist circles celebrating Houdini's death before he even passed? You see, dear listeners, Houdini made powerful enemies. His crusade against fraudulent mediums had exposed countless people, destroying their lucrative business and their reputations. The spiritualist movement, which had amassed significant influence in the 1920s, saw Houdini as a threat that needed to be eliminated. Some theorists suggest that Whitehead wasn't just an overeager student, but a hired hand, an assassin employed by a consortium of vengeful spiritualists. The punch wasn't random, a calculated strike meant to cause maximum internal damage. In the days following the incident, Houdini's condition seemed to improve, only to suddenly deteriorate. Some suggest he may have been poisoned during his hospital stay, ensuring that the great escape artist would never escape. On October 31st, 1926, Harry Houdini spoke his final words. "I'm tired of fighting." The official cause of death was listed as peritonitis and appendicitis. But was this merely the final act in a grand conspiracy? A perfect murder disguised as a tragic accident? The great escape artist's final container wasn't a water tank or a sealed milk can. It was a bronze coffin he had built to make a point. It was his wish to be buried in a bronze coffin to prove anyone could survive without error for an hour, if only they mastered their fear. Now he lies in that same coffin, forever testing his own theory. The airtight seal he designed to keep air out now keeps him in exactly as he wished. His last trick turned out to be his most permanent. Before his death, he made a pact with his wife, Bess. He told her if he could communicate beyond death, he would send her a message. He left her with a code. The words, "Roosevelt, believe." Bess Houdini performed a seance in darkened rooms for 10 years on Halloween night, waiting for her dead husband to whisper. The words were supposed to be his key to unlock the door between life and death, their secret code, their final trick together. Each year she lit candles. Each year she called into the darkness. Each year, silence answered. The greatest escape artist of all time couldn't break free from death's chains. And after a decade of empty seances, she finally blew out her candle. We may never know the whole truth of what happened in the Montreal dressing room or the hospital during those final days. Could that punch to his abdomen have furthered a case of pre-appendicitis? Or could he have secretly been poisoned slowly over time, perhaps by a spiritualist or a scorned wife or lover? One thing is certain, the death of Harry Houdini remains one of magic's most enduring mysteries, a puzzle that even the master escape artist himself couldn't solve. I guess this is another story left to the unexplained realms. Houdini once said, "Anyone who believes in magic is a fool." This coming from a man who was shackled and placed in the belly of a dead sea creature, sewn inside and swore he would escape. He broke free, of course, but not without consequence. He felt ill after, as he underestimated the amount of arsenic solution used by the taxidermist to preserve the creature. I guess the circumstances of Houdini's death remain elusive, as his most dazzling escapes were. Some of it say the punch ruptured his appendix, some whisper poison. But like all great mysteries, Houdini's end leaves us with more questions than answers. The truth is just lying buried beneath layers of time. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, I'll leave you with this. In a world where illusion and reality dance in shadow, true magic lies in what remains in the unexplained realms.